So, welcome, my dear Milad. How are you?
I'm good. You know, the problem I had, it seems it was because of VPN. When I opened the VPN, it seems your site has been blocked here, maybe, or Zoom maybe has been blocked here on the internet. And by the way,
So
I'm
this
here
is
right
exactly
now.
the theme of this eighth Jalan Film Festival. We call it. The theme is paranormal communications. So now we are in Zooming conference between Istanbul and Tehran. And I'm Vincent Bouvard. I am one of the members of the Canlandıranlar Association in Istanbul. And I have in front of me a very great Iranian composer, specialist of film soundtracks, film musics, which is Milad. Milad is going to introduce himself, and Milad will give us today a session on how he sees the specificities of writing for animation, because Milad has written over 20 scores for music scores for animation. Some of them won awards. So it's a great pleasure to have you, Milad, in front of the screen. I'd prefer to have you in Istanbul, of course, but maybe in spring.
Maybe. So, hello everybody. My name is Milad Movahedi. As you know, I'm music composer and score writer, and the experiences of composing for animations for me was so much better than the other films like feature movies or documentaries or commercials. I love working on animations because of the atmosphere they have and also the creation they have inside them. And most of the time, the animator should think somehow like an artist, that they have to tell a very important meaning in a very short film with so much more creations than the real world. This is why I love composing for animations, and thank you so much, Vincent, for inviting me to share my experiences with my friends. And I'm here to start. If you want, I can start from the headlines I mentioned before.
Yeah, can I just say a few words? Well, Milad is going to present his views. You can always send us questions through the chat. I will select the questions. You can ask them in Turkish if you are not very at ease with English. I will translate it in English to Milad. And at the end of the, or I don't know, at the end of the session, Milad will share on Zoom a 20-minute film for which he has done the score. But this film is, we can only show it beyond the wall of Zoom. So we will be closing the YouTube session for this film. So when we come to that side, at that point, either you join us on Zoom by finding the links on your social media, or well, you missed the great film, because I've seen it. It's a very, very nice film. And Milad, please tell me also when we have to cut the session to YouTube. Okay.
Okay.
So the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I wanted to talk a little about this story. Actually, when I was young, I'm young right now, but when I was younger, I was so interested in literature and also cinema, and also the story. The most important fact for composing for the story is try to read short stories and try to make some melodies inside your head. I mean, when I was young, when I read a story, and or when I read a novel or literature or anything else, I try to imagine the world that writer has created, and I try to make some music for them. I mean, the music started after reading for in my mind. This is the most important fact that you have to understand about inside the animation, that what is the story is going to say. This is why you have to be friend with literature. Um, for me, it's a very important fact for composition for any type of media, especially animation. Literature and story, how to follow the story and how to end the story with music. And what can you extract by music? Because music is going to be like someone who knows everything during the film. And music should talk instead of, not instead of, read the pictures. I mean, so for me, the first important fact for composing music for uh, pictures is story. That you have to be friend with literature, novels, and try to understand the stories by reading before starting composing for just mediums. Yeah. Is that okay, or any question about?
Yeah, I think I'm going to. You can go on, and I will
Okay.
collect the question. I will ask you the question
Okay.
at the end of the session. But please, dear participant, you can share all your questions through the chat or the question and answer feature of Zoom. Okay, thank you very much. And
How can I do it?
but for me,
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, you say that to be, you must be really able to, first of all, understand fully and feel fully the story to be able to put some notes on the
Exactly.
story.
Exactly. And reading is something that helps the composer so much that in this world, actually today, most of the composers don't read so much and they are not so familiar with literature and story. This is the lack of literature you can see in the compositions, that they haven't understood the story of the animation very well. This is why I think one of the most important topics for composition is story, that you should be familiar to culture and literature, both of them together. And after that, I wanted to uh, be a little more professional. So we are coming to compose for animation. So one of the most important topics that we have to take care about it, I mean, we have to concern about it, is fantasy. Animation is another word, is not a real word. Um, the borders between realism and actually fantasy is not exactly very weak, but it's very short. You have to try not forget the realism and not forget the fantasy. I mean, both of them is very important, because in the cover of fantasy, the director is going to tell a real story, like surrealism. You, I mean, um, we have to believe the word that director has created. You know, we know it's not a real word, but we should be inside of it, inside of the universe that he has created. And we have to convince, first of all, ourselves, this word is real. Also, we know everyone is fantasy. And this is one of the most important facts that we have to consider in writing the music.
And of course,
Most,
in animation, in the real film, in the normal
everything,
action
yes,
film,
many types of
you
media.
can start to believe. It's easier to believe this lie because at least
Yes.
what you see, you know it. But in animation, there's already you have to pull into people in the visual world and make them believe in this world.
Exactly, exactly. That's why that composition for animation, composers are more free to think something like something else. They don't have to try, just compose for the meaning of the story. For example, if it has a sad story, I have to compose a sad music. If it is a happy story, I have to know. Something we have to be take care about it is fantasy. We don't have to forget fantasy. Fantasy is one of the most important facts that elements inside the music should be shown. Not always, I'm not talking about always, but many times fantasy is in music. I mean, maybe it can be a kind of form like tango, it can be a kind of form like waltz, or any kind of elements that you can add fantasy in your music for the composers. I mean,
does this fantasies come also from the instruments you are using, or when you say fantasy, is to be able to pull people in your dream, or what is the exact?
Not exactly dream. I mean something like funny. I mean something that you can show something that I have composed the music for this animation. This in your music, it cannot be real too. You know what I mean? I mean, these are the elements that you can add to your music. Your music shouldn't be go as a very classical or um, I cannot find the word, sorry. It cannot be a routine, or it cannot be composer can think something else about to adding a new words, their dreams also. The music cannot be a real music. It have it can have some elements that makes it sometimes funny, maybe up to animation, or you can exaggerate the music many times because if, for example, the director says, I need an attack here, you can exaggerate that attack too much more than what composer want, because this is the words that you have to convince the viewer that with the sounds and also with the music, that this word can be real. And you have to believe with this universe, this story with my music and sounds also. Okay,
Yes,
and
oh yeah, okay, I got the point.
thank you so much. So, what were, let's talk about, okay. One of the most important things during the composing is the communication with the director and with actually his points or her points of views exactly to understand them. It has happened many times for me that, for example, I have started composing something else and the directors know your music is completely different with I thought before. I need the music like this, and we have had many challenges for during the time we had to work, because most of the time this communication is not correct. Most of the time directors cannot maybe um, tell you exactly what they want because they don't know the word of music, how to the language of music, and sometimes they ask for something that you think exactly something else. But as my opinion, director is directing a film, and what he or she wants is the premier thing we have to take care. I mean, First of all, this is what we want exactly, especially when we think also this music is not working for this scene, and the director said, no, I exactly want this. We have to understand why. We have to communicate with his words. What is his point of view that he's going to use this music?
How do you help people to find the right music? Are you giving examples of things which are
Yes, first of all, most of the time, yes. You know, when the directors are directing or they are editing their films, many times they use a sample music just for cutting, and sometimes they have a brief, and I ask them to forget it first of all, and I ask them, let me think about your work, because the duty of the composer is adding something else to the animation. If you want to make exactly the music he has chosen before, you haven't done anything. Try to think something else. I mean, when he says, I want something like this, so first of all, we have to understand why directors want music like this. I had many challenges during my works with different directors about it. And these challenges happens because we don't communicate very well to each other. And we don't understand the meaning that director wants to extract from his work.
This is probably the same thing for normal feature films, no?
Yes, exactly. For all of them is the same, but for the animation, because we have another word. I mean, many meanings can be extract inside from the because it's a very minimal art. You know, you have to tell your philosophy, your word in a very short time with a new kind of creation that it's not in the real world. That's because the meanings, maybe there are misunderstanding between the meanings of the director and composer understand from the film. Um, but yes, exactly the same for any types of media, for feature movies and also for anything else. What happened? Okay. Um, I wanted to say something else about this. Yes, you asked me how do I start composing. Yeah, I first of all, I after watching 2 or 3 times the animation, then I start writing some etudes for it. Many times it happens that the first session that director comes to hear his music, we have completely a misunderstanding. Sometimes everything goes well. Sometimes the director um, my music makes the director, even in the first session, very happy. But these challenges can be solved, but by talking to each other. If we have a misunderstanding of meaning, um, and at the end, when you got completely what director wants to say, or why is the reasons that he want to use this music or that music, or what is exactly his points of views, that's the time that composer should start working on his own ideas, because you are not going to compose exactly what he wants. You should compose something, add something more to his films. You should surprise him. You should think, okay, you said this, and this is my art. From this time, after that, you just got this feeling from the music, but I'm not going to exactly write what you say. I'm going to write what you think.
Yeah.
Yes, because you know, it can be copied. I mean, especially today with these softwares, if they want to exactly something, use something exactly the same that someone thinks, you can. Where is the composer? Where is the situation of composer here? So composer is someone who should add something to the film. We should add something more. not exactly.
And generally, the directors you are working with know very well what they want in terms of music on their films, or is it more your ideas who are coming and
Many times they are director ideas, and many times are mine. But the times that they have some ideas, I think about their. I have just finished a feature movie that we had many different ideas with the director, and but I thought about what he said. I mean, why is he going to use this one? Then I made my music by myself. I mean, many times it can be helpful. It can be helpful because the director knows what works for his film, but he cannot communicate with you to transfer his mind to the language of music. This is a problem sometimes happens. But yes, their ideas, I mean, both of them are right, and both of them should be inside the film. I mean, the director's ideas and also the composer's ideas. They work together, they are in the same way.
yeah, you are both serving the story, in fact. So
Exactly. And the next thing in the animation, which is very important, is the difference between sound design and music composing. You know, the role of music and also sound in the animations sometimes is the same. There are many times that composers try just to sound design with the instrument for the animation. You know, they are very close. The border is very, very, very close. I mean, the, um, they are very close together. No, sometimes you cannot recognize which one is sound design and which one is music inside, under the animation. I mean, under the pictures. The music composer should know at least the minimum things about sound designs, and he should or she should have imagination of the scene, that if the sounds come here, what will happen. And most of the time they have to work together, if the sound design, if they are not the same person, but they should be linked together very close, because as you know, so all the sounds in the world has many notes, has notes. If you are using a sound for example, water, or knocking a door, or everything which inside the film. And if you write music under it, sometimes they make dissonance. You know, the bad sounds, that two notes comes together very close. And this is why I most of the time ask the sound designers to send me the sound when I am working on the music, mm, to check both of them together, um, it doesn't sound bad many times, because I don't want it sound bad, the mixing of sound designs and music.
and
And
on animation film, you are generally doing only the music, or both the music and the sound designing?
I do it separately. I mean, when I'm working on the film, I close everything. But when I go a little, when I write a little more, and we have the first agreement of music, and we have the first confirmation of the form of music, I ask the sound designer, if you have down your sounds, please send them to me. Or at the end of the film, before record, if the sound design is finished, I ask the sound designer to send it, because I want to check the frequencies and the notes of the sound designs and the music together. Maybe I have to change the scale, for example, from La minor to C minor. I see with the sound of the atmosphere of the film, this scale sounds so much better. Uh, and sometimes composers should do some sound designing with instruments. For example, in the animation jam sheet that we are going to show after this meeting, the director asked me, he said there is no sound in the movie, in the film. You should just try to make everything just with instruments. So I tried to, for example, to make the voice of, for example, water with some symbols. But although they gave it to a sound designer and he put it some small sounds in some parts, but we have to think sometimes about sound design, and we have to be ready for an order like this. That the role of music and sound design maybe sometimes can be the same. It can be a one job with many effective forms, with instruments. You can make some sounds, and you have to be ready for that. And you should have a little, not a profession, but you should know a little about. You should not be a professional, but you should know a little about sound design. And also, the last thing I wanted to talk about is about synchronization, actually.
Yeah, synchronization.
Which is one of the most important facts and issues actually in composing. I had an experience in Turkey for some months. I worked with one of the heads of commercial professionals, Ömer Ağabey, and that time was a very good experience for me, composing on commercials and doing some examples, some etudes on commercial, made me so professional to find the synchronization, to find how can I start a melody and how can I do it that my melody, for example, is 5 seconds. No, it should be down in 3 seconds, or it should be down in 10 seconds, or should develop it in 20 seconds sometimes. This is very important. That it just goes back to how much you practice every day on the medias. For me, it was like this. I mean, the practices and the works I did in Jingle House and commercials, because in commercial, it's somehow, I think, it's like, it's a kind of training for you composing for commercials. It's a kind of training that teach you how to think, not as a real life, how to think musical. You should be in another way. In commercials, you should convince the people with your music, with your pictures, that you should convince people to buy this product, for example. And you learn how to think for the others, or how to update yourself to thinking for someone else. Of course, in commercial is completely another word, and it's not comparable with composing for artistic movies or artistic animations. But it can be a very good exercise, I think, for the composers. And also trying to compose for very, very simple animations from the Hollywood, for example, or from the past. I mean, from very simple stories, very simple melodies, they start to write, and just exercise everything. Any type of media you can get in this world today, you can reach any types of medias, commercial, in a second, and you can just close the sound and start composing on it, and start to try and watch it, and say, how does it work?
And synchronization with advertising, I think, is a very good school for a lot of things. For filmmakers too, it's a good school.
Yes.
Because you have to be very compact, fast, and go directly to the point. And you have also probably something which is we've already talked together, and which is very relevant for animated films. Also, you have a bit to exaggerate things. I mean, you can't be too much in the, like we say in French, in the dentelle, in the small things. You have to say what to be bold and say what you have to say in a very few seconds.
Exactly. And yes, and that is why I say it was a very good training course for me, working for commercials in Turkey because you don't have time, you have to be fast, you have to think very fast, and it's just update your mind. It just make you fast. And after that, when you are working on an artistic work, these are just experiences that you use it during the work. I don't agree that composing for an artistic is completely different. No, that is our life. I am a composer. I should learn how to compose for the other ideas. I should learn the word is not just my ideas. A part of word is productions, making money, life, and everything. And during this crew board, actually, we are trying to make arts. And on animation and sense is a very, very creative word that it's a very, very, very good opportunity for the composers to show themselves, to show their creations, and to make a new music that you haven't heard before.
How do you feel the approach to animation and to feature films? What is there a kind of music that you can't choose, for example, for animation, or that you can't choose? You can use for animation, but you can't use for feature films, for example.
Of course, it depends on the animation and also on the feature movie. I can't say there are many points that they are similar, and also as your music is so abstract, and you cannot exactly say this music has exactly this meaning, or this is just usable, or you can use it just for this movie or just for this. Music can work in many different. One piece can be used in many different types of medias, in different feelings, in different, and it works also in many of them. But yes, the profession of composing for animation, both of them are experiences. But composing for animation is a little bold, a little more professional. I mean, it has more concentrate on some other points, like um, like the items I mentioned before, like the fantasy, like exactly the synchronization, which is so much more important than feature movies, because in a second or in a frame you have to work. Um, and also, mm, um, um, yes, that's it. I think.
Okay, great. I repeat to everybody, you can send us your question from question and answer. Yeah, I have a question here coming from Berna Gencal in Istanbul. Before the animation is produced, do you give any information to the director or the animator about the rhythm? Do you say beforehand about the rhythm? Do you talk about beats, seconds, your beat per seconds, and so on and so forth? Are you given this kind of information by the director, or this
About
kind of
synchronization? Sorry, Vincent, I didn't understand very well.
Yeah.
Are you asking a question from a student from me?
Yes,
Yes.
the question is coming from the web, from Berna Gencal, and she's asking, before the animation is produced, do you give any information to the director on the animation, on the beats, the beats per second, I will be using so on and so forth, 180 to 20.
Yes,
Yeah.
I got the question. It's very important if the animation is based on music or not. If the director wants to animate or if wants to edit his or his pictures on the music or not. Yes, if the animation is going to be produced on the music, they should have everything before starting. Especially in the animation we are going to watch Jamshid, I started to composing music and we had a very deep discussion about the meaning, about the seconds, about the frames, about the time. For example, he said, I want a heroic music, 5 seconds from here to here. And I gave him a tempo, a metronome, a track, or a seconds. And I said, so I can manage this 10 in, for example, 2 seconds, in 5 seconds. Or yes, I asked them if the animation is based on music or is going to be edited on music. But no, the director is free and the director can do his things and the composer as a professional, if it is not dependent to the music, I mean, it's not going to be synced on the music. For example, the musical animation, first of all, they have to record music and after that they have to work on it. But professional composers most of the time after even they haven't had any discussion before the music, they do it. It depends on the animation most of the time.
Another question is, what do you have as project on your head on your desk today? On which kind of projects are you working in terms of
right now?
Yeah.
I have just finished a feature movie and I'm going to start composing for a documentary series about Iran, which is around 40 episodes. And we're going to write a very orchestral, national orchestra, I mean, combination between symphonic orchestra and some Persian instruments. We are going to record something about 60 minutes music.
Mm-hmm. One other question is, what was the most surprising sort of music or sound you have been using in animation? What is the most different or most, kind of...
Different, when I said we can think different, it doesn't mean exactly different about the new instruments. It doesn't mean exactly the new sound of instruments or we create a new sound or a new atmosphere or a new pad or no, we can think something like this. For example, if we have motif in melody or if we have measures on melody or if, for example, we say this is one motif and this is the second sentence of it. No, you can break these structures. You can break the harmonies and you can think that your melody is not follow exactly the rules of music composition that you have learned before. Although making a new sounds, most of the time, I cannot say because in any different types of animation, I have used different instruments. It goes back many times on the location that, I mean, which area or which situation it is going to show you. Many times you have to use some traditional instruments, especially Turkey, that they have a deep culture in their traditional music. And for many pictures, they have to use them. But when I say we can think different or we can make new music or making different music with a real music, I mean, with the music that we hear every day, day by day. No, on animation, we can think something like that. We can just break some structures, like the director has done it before.
Great. Can you tell us what is the parts you most you like the most in being a film scorer, a film musician, and what are the most difficult part of it?
Most difficult part of it is communication with director. I mean, to find your communications, to, you know, it's a very long way to become a composer. As you know me from many years ago, so it has been many years that I am working. I'm trying many times. Your situation is not good, and sometimes uh, you don't have jobs. Sometimes you are looking for um, just doing something just to making money. But it's a very long way, and every steps are difficult. I mean, it goes back to if you love something or not. If you love something, so there is no difficulty, or the difficulties are not impressing you. The difficulties are the way that you have to go on. I think all the parts are difficult, and all the way is difficult, and also it can not be difficult. It goes back on you how to face
And
with.
what is the most exciting part? On the parts you like the best?
mm,
Compared to, I think, writing for music for orchestra or just for performance or for
yeah,
songs.
when the screening actually it's an because I don't know how's the situation in Turkey or in. It's completely different with here because most of the time when I work with for animation, it means it's a very low budget. It's it
Yeah.
might be in the I mean there is no screening most of the time in famous TVs or something like that. It means your job maybe is going to be hidden for many times and nobody knows you but by that job. It's just a personal love that you love, you want to work in animation. Uh, Although I have won some awards of composition for animation, but it should be I mean personal love.
Great. I will take I will ask two more questions. After that, we will pass to the film
Okay.
because we will also to have to leave YouTube in about 10 minutes to leave
Okay.
so what are can you name the film musician which inspire you the most, or are there such
Yeah.
people, or are you taking your
Um,
inspiration from somewhere else?
you know, when I was young, I'm young. When I was younger, I was 20 years old, something like that. Wanted to be Beethoven, but it was very difficult. One of the film score writers which I loved so much was Zbigniew Preisner, the Polish composer who composed for the films of Krzysztof Kieślowski, my favorite director, my favorite Polish director. And but the most number one film score writer, as my opinion, is Ennio Morricone,
Mm.
which is great and the best, number one. I mean, no one is comparable with him because in many different type of movies, he has created many different type of musics, and all of them is exactly correct. All of them is exactly the beauty, exactly beautiful, and beautiful melodies, beautiful. Everything is right in his compositions.
Great. In fact, there are a lot of questions which are coming, but i- you have already talked a bit during your intervention, but do you think there is a specific way to work for co-creating the animation between the director and the composer? Is it something that's very specific, or it's very close to the? Is it different in animation to co-create the scores, or is it
No,
close to?
no. It's not different. It is. I just mentioned this part because I said it's a very important part that you communicate with the directors. of course, it goes back just to the people. Sometimes you communicate with a guy very easily. Sometimes it's very hard to communicate. It doesn't make difference. He's a feature movie director, he's an animator director. It goes back to the people, not to the animation. Or
And are you generally working on finished films, or you are at what stage? You were saying in the beginning you were starting with the story, but do you start to write when with the script, or generally with the finished film, or half finished film, or animatic, or at what time?
Most of the time, I'm the finished film. Most of the time, but on some specific animation or some special works that they wanted to work on the music, or they wanted to shoot on the music, or they had a musical scene or musical animation, first I did the music for them. Or sometimes in commercial, I did the music for commercial. First I made it because completely it was a musical commercial. But most of the time on feature movies and on animations also, I received the final film. And most of the time, if the music is very important, they have edited on music the scenes that they think because of the reason.
Okay, I will ask you two more questions, and after that we'll close the session. In fact, I still say now I will put the link of the Vimeo open film to at the end of the session on this. And of course, only the people on Zoom will be able to see Kwame Jamshid. So yeah. So a simple and I think very important one. Where do you work? Are you working from home or from somewhere else?
Yes, I have a small home studio, but I just write at home, and I just do my meetings at home with the directors, and just some small records at home. But for the recording and mixing and mastering, I go to a studio, professional studio. Okay. But yeah, I have a home studio that we have to go at home or home office, something like that.
And do you sometimes imagine, have it happened to you that you take one of your composition and you go to an animator or to a director and say, make a film about this? Did it, or do you dream of this? I don't know.
Actually, yeah, but I've got no answer. No,
so
you know, person, I just once a time at 90, no, I think it was about 2011 that my personal album was released. Mm-hmm. At that time, I talked to some directors and to some animators if we can do something together. But you know, there should be good budget for it most of the time, and I cannot order as a composer to make a movie on my music. Or it may happen sometime if I become a very, very famous composer. Sometimes, yeah, maybe one director one day.
One question also that came, and it's also I will mix it with one of my questions. When I look at your work because I have the chance to see some other works from Milad, I see that I think that there is more of a Western influence than the Persian influence in the music that you're using in the films. Is it right? How do you approach this question of Eastern music and Western music in film scoring?
Of course, I'm under influence of everyone. I think is under influence of his culture. Everyone in any part of the world. Of course, I am, but I cannot say because I have been under influence of classical music many times, of soundtracks many times, and what I am right now, I think I am a mix of all. I am a collection of all these types of arts which I have listened during this time. And I don't think there is a difference between music. You know, it happens today sometimes, especially in Hollywood, and especially in some, for example, heroic movies that they are made by Hollywood. You can see some Oriental melodies or some Oriental musics on the pictures. So I think music is an international language, and it doesn't mean exactly you should. Sometimes you have to. It depends on the location and area that you want to actually. You want to show that point. That, for example, this culture should be shown. So you have to use that Oriental music or that traditional music for that. But in the international world, I think we can have many different things. I mean, it's an international language many times.
So thank you very much for Milad for this, and we are going to close the YouTube session, but we are going to go on in Zoom together, perhaps to ask you one or two more questions and to look to watch the film. So let's say bye bye to the people on YouTube. But we are going to have another session now.
Thank you so much.